We now return to Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project, the radio show discussing honest truth about Illinois policy and politics. Here's AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan back with Ted Dabrowski, president of wirepoints.com, on this edition of Rising, and SaveYourHomeNow.org. SaveYourHomeNow.org. 3 weeks to act in furtherance of doing just that by electing people who are serious about rethinking, reforming, and hard capping property taxes in this state. The stories are legion, and they keep pouring in, and we keep posting them at that site, SaveYourHomeNow.org. I share them on my morning show. Ted and Mark Lennon over at wirepoints.com write about it. Here's the latest high-profile example out of Highland Park. Scottie Pippen, you remember him, NBA Hall of Famer? He purchased a home in Highland Park when he retired in 2004 for $2.23 million. That's about $3 million in today's dollars, constant 2018 dollars. The home was listed on October 4th for $2.25, which would represent a loss of $720,000 when you adjust for inflation. And during the 14 years he's owned the home, he's paid another $500,000 in property taxes. His bill, tax bill this year, property tax bill this year, $39,000, which actually 1.8% of his asking price, right? 1.8% of home value is his property tax bill. That's twice the national average, but it's actually one of the lower rates in the Chicago metro region. And he's looking to get out with a $750,000 loss on his property. So think about that for the middle-income families on the North Shore and everywhere else. When you're in Lake County and, say, Grays Lake, and you're paying 4%. You're paying more than 2 times as a percentage of home value what Scottie Pippen is, what you're in for as you stay in your home or you go to sell your home. I mean, no one escapes. This, to me, Ted, continues to be the unifying issue for this state. There is a consensus, and it just seems that we need to continue to sort of stoke action from the majority who are starting to understand that their life's investment is being stripped away by the government in this state.
Yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal. The cost of government never goes down, right? The taxes that you pay never go down. Maybe they'll stay flat one year, which is like extremely rare, but they will always go up. Meanwhile, home values can go down.
Well, as property taxes continue to go up, home values will go down. And it's not can, it's will.
Yeah, it's the combination, right? So not only is Illinois becoming a less attractive place, but as those taxes go up to pay for all those unpaid bills, then that hurts home values. People leave, and then it becomes a vicious cycle.
Home equity desert. And do you think the government cares when your income fluctuates? You think they care when you move to retirement and you're on a fixed income and you can't afford property taxes going up at a 45-degree angle? Well,
I was at my school district school board meeting a couple months ago, and they have this ability to take in new taxes the higher of inflation or 5%.
Yeah, the 5% cap.
And so inflation was whatever 2.5%. Yeah. So they said something like, "Well, we've got to take this new money so we don't lose it." As opposed to saying, my gosh, can our residents afford it? They're just saying, we got to take it, we got to grab it now, otherwise we'll never have it. And that's the kind of mentality.
Right. How much do you need? More.
Right.
Always more. Always more. And the other game that's played, as you know, you've written about this, is going to state legislators, these school districts, which is, of course, the preponderance, actually, the areas we're talking about, the overwhelming majority of your property tax bill, and having the debt caps on the school districts lifted so they can continue to borrow and take through the back door, but they can't get through the front door in terms of taxation and unrestrained spend. And that's what's happened in this area that we're talking about. Scottie Pippen might be interested in this story, and you might be interested to hear from Barrett Davie on the topic. Barrett Davie is a Republican candidate for state Senate, running up on the North Shore, Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, Highwood, Highland Park, Deerfield area, running against incumbent State Senator Julie Morrison. And Barrett Davie joins us now. Barrett, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. Do you have any advice and counsel for Scottie Pippen or other NBA stars on the North Shore trying to get out?
Well, I'd ask them all to get out and vote and
Yeah.
and put me into office. Quite frankly, it's amazing to me how the story that you guys are telling is being told in every single town in our district. And it doesn't matter if you're living in Highland Park or Lake Forest or Glencoe, or you're living in Northbrook or Wheeling or out in Palatine in our well-gerrymandered district here. Folks are underwater. You talk to people that own, $500,000 two flats that they work 2 or 3 jobs their whole lives to pay for, and they're 70 years old and they're paying, $18,000 on a $500,000 two flat and 3.6%. And hey, look, they're saying, hey, I'm never going to live the American dream and retire to Florida or go someplace else. I'm stuck in this house and I'll never sell it. And that's real. And then you've got all the folks that we talk to every day. I mean, there's a for sale sign every, 4th or 5th house in our communities along the lake here. And it's a lot of business owners who are saying, you know what, I'm just going to move my business someplace else because I'm not going to be left holding the bag. And, my opponent, Julie Morrison, walks around and talks about being a supporter of the people in the communities. And the reality is she's done nothing to lead in the state as they continue to pick the pockets of our communities and use our homes as piggy banks.
Now, are your constituents there starting to figure it out? Can they connect the dots between these crazy property tax rates and the bad laws that we have, or are they just frustrated and angry but don't know why these things happen?
I think unfortunately it's still more of the latter. I think we're working really hard to direct their attention to what really causes these problems. I mean, when you look at the state of Illinois and you look at a place that has all of the resources and the bounty that we have here, and then yet simultaneously have the highest debt burden and the worst unfunded liability and the worst credit rating, and also the worst taxation. And you point to that and say, listen, the reality here is that the state doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and thus the burden is being put back on you here locally in the community, and you should be asking for more from your state legislature. You should be asking for them to do their jobs and learn how to manage a budget and learn how to create a system that works so we can lower our property taxes. I think they're starting to wake up, but we're just beating the drum nonstop on that because I think a lot of folks don't connect property taxes to how badly our state government is run.
Well, right. But also, too, I mean, even, you have a district that has a lot of successful professional people, but connecting property taxes and the negative multiplier of increasing property taxes to home value, to return on investment, not connecting the dots between school borrowing as backdoor tax increases and thus property tax increases. It sort of continues to mystify me that people complain but then don't kind of search for the source of their complaint.
Yeah, I think that's right too, Dan. I definitely think that's right, and you see this constantly. You see, folks going out and advocating for more bond issuances and more borrowing, when in reality, the state, should be funding more, or these guys should be asking different questions about, how these, districts are being run.
Well, what's fascinating is, you're talking about a massive bond increase, right, in the North Shore School District 112. And these things are done, they're usually voted on if there's a referendum and when nobody else is voting. So it's really hard for the average person to really keep up with it, get engaged. And so I think those are the kind of things we have to change is the transparency, what these bond issues are for, the transparency of when these things are voted on. People just don't know the background behind these bonds. And, that's how we've ended up with something like $21 billion in school district debt that nobody knows about and talks about.
Yeah, and quite frankly, to personalize it to us and what, to your example on Scotty and Highland Park, I mean, we saw Julie Morrison, basically sneak in a funding bill to raise the limits for Highland Park. The people in Highland Park voted it down, thankfully, but, she doesn't take accountability for that. She's just out there saying, I'm going to give these towns the ability to do this, as opposed to getting involved and asking the tough questions. And now, you got a town like Highland Park where they've brought in a great new superintendent who's actually figuring out how to solve the problems they have without raising that debt. So, the reality is that, you've got a job if you want to stand up and, lead in the state legislature. You've got a job to help these communities understand what's going on here and stop and really stop the madness. I mean, stop the continued quest for just more funding without actually asking the tough questions and having the debate and getting involved in the community and getting everybody else to understand how important this is and what the impact is on your home value.
You're branding yourself in your candidacy as an independent Republican. What should people take that to mean?
Well, I mean, look, for me, and I think a lot of folks have watched our campaign. I mean, we've gone out and taken a message out to our communities, very much about this not being as much about being a Republican or a Democrat or a conservative or liberal, but about being a human being who wants to live here. I mean, look, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and my dad was a Chicago cop for 35 years. And, my mom was a Polish immigrant who came through Ellis Island in 1951. And through scholarships and a lot of student loans, I ended up as an attorney and built a national company in the media world. And I married a woman from up here, and we moved here 10 years ago. And when I got up here and really kind of settled into the community and got involved in helping build a couple of nonprofits, I realized just how lucky, I was and how I had an opportunity, to live the American dream. And the reality, though, is that opportunity seems to be stripping away. I'm seeing friends leave the district and leave the state because, they can move to other places and don't feel this place is supporting, their ability to, live that American dream. And, again, I get back all the time to this notion that, on the one hand, I was talking to the Israeli consul general recently about this, and he said, I think there's about 170 countries around the world that would like to be Illinois, between the natural resources and the 36 Fortune 500 companies and the intermodal transportation hub and, all of the educational opportunities and the global city we have here. We have incredible resources, but, when you've got the worst debt in the country and the worst credit rating and the worst tax burden and the worst funding in schools and the worst out-migration, it's pretty hard to understand what the heck has been going on here. So my campaign has been about reaching out to everybody. It doesn't matter what your party affiliations. It's been about saying, listen, wake up. We are wasting an incredible place that we have here in Illinois, and this is, we're just a perfect location to build your business, to plant roots and build community. And I think the people in Springfield have they've just gotten it all wrong, and they just don't recognize what we have here. And I think a lot of our voters, unfortunately, have become, apathetic and don't participate in the process because they just don't know what can be done. And I'm here to say, look, if you're an entrepreneur and you can paint a bold vision and you can lead people and take them to, a place that they all aspire to be, then, you've got a chance to turn this state around. And that's what our campaign's been about is really wanting to be here. I want my kids to go to school and I want them to come back and plant roots here in this community. And I want them to want to flourish here and not move to Austin, Texas or Denver or Charlotte or Nashville or Memphis. Good God. I just don't get it. I get why people are leaving, but I think there's a reason to fight for this place.
All right. He is Barrett Davie, website Barrett Davie, Davie, BarrettDavie.com. Republican candidate, independent Republican candidate for state Senate up on the North Shore. Barrett, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan and Ted, thanks for your time and for all the work you guys are doing. I appreciate it.
All right. You take care.